Hey, writers, we are going to have a grand old time today because I am with Rebecca Dolence. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thanks for having me.
This is going to be fantastic because Rebecca's going to talk about some really cool stuff around creatures, the fantastical kind that we can find in middle grade YA novels. And I guess even adult novels can have some
Or right
fantastical
next door. You
creatures too.
never know who your neighbors are.
That's so true. See, writers, this is why we're going to have a good time. But let me introduce you a little bit more here to Rebecca and the good stuff she's doing. So, Rebecca A. Dolence is a lover of stories, overanalyzing and everything creepy when she's not listening to the crows cackle or writing under the oak tree's canopy. You'll find her dancing under the moonlight in the backyard or flinging mud in her Jeep. I feel like there's all sorts of stories there, but we won't go into that today. As a certified Author Accelerator fiction book coach, she specializes in coaching fantasy, magical realism, and various subgenres of horror for adults and children because, yes, kids love horror too. By helping adults from the scary blank page, sorry, helping authors from the scary blank page to drafting and revision to a complete manuscript. Rebecca loves supporting writers through collaboration and brainstorming to help the words dance off the page. She has a Bachelor's of Arts from the University of Detroit Mercy and is a longtime member of the SCBWI. Has earned several certificates in writing for children from the Institute of Children's Literature, and she's a blogger, developmental editor, and of course, the business owner of Brad Notes Book Coaching LLC, which we will talk about a bit as well. So Rebecca has this area of expertise that is completely beyond me, and these are always my favorite kind of conversations to have because I love learning from people who know stuff in areas that I don't know. So Rebecca's Creature Club has really caught my attention because she has this fantastic thing that she offers for writers. So let's start first there because that's what really snagged my attention in this work that you've been doing recently. Would you tell the writers about the Creatures Club?
Sure, I do. It's a Creatures of the Month Club, and I do it on the last day of every month. Um, Whatever day that falls on, that's what day you're going to get it. And it entails quite a bit. It gives a little bit of an origin story to a creature. It gives crossovers, whether that's cultural, a lot of times it's theological, and it expresses across the globe. A lot of times, a lot of these creatures are in so many different places. They might have different names, they might have slightly different characteristics, but for the most part, they're their own personalities. And that's what's so intriguing. So it comes out at the end of the month, and then I do add a little writing infusion to kind of take everything we learned with these personalities and attributes and different things. But I started this because I love weird things and I love things that scare people. And it was funny, Sarah, because I was flipping through social media and something said fear is actually an acronym for false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, how interesting, that you could have people are afraid of spiders, people are afraid of clowns or the person next door or lawnmower, who knows? But there's a reason behind everything. And when you have a reason behind fear, it made me think of, the world. We make things scary when we don't understand it. So the more we can understand something, the more that we can put definition behind it, put content behind it. So I'm sure you're going to ask me, so I'm just going to tell you now. Here's how it happened. This whole creature of the month idea that I came up with, it was accidental. So it's twofold. I was reading this book by Milena Evans. She has this Jagger Jones series. And it's middle grade. They're absolutely wonderful. So basically, the boy it loves ancient history, specifically Egypt. And of course, he's falling, he goes somewhere and then he falls down the hole and boop, he's in ancient Egypt. But what's really cool about them is these books is that the author makes it so understandable for both kids and us that don't have this background. And because it's simple, but the flow is so beautiful. Well, in that story was a lot of jinn, or genies, as people call them. And there's good genies, there's bad genies. Each one of them have like their own little segments in life and such. So I'm like, that's interesting. And it just so happened that I was watching Paranormal Caught on Camera. I watch it show all the time because it has a lot of creatures in it. ghosts, goblins, weird stuff that you didn't expect. And I write all this down, and I'm prepared for it. And it's fun entertainment when you really just don't want to watch, think too much. So in that was this ghost hunter that was running around trying to, find evidence, but this Jin is following him. He's like, and he's freaking out and stuff. It was funny. But it also led to, well, what is a genie or a Jin? So as I started to research it, that's when I came across, I think that's actually my first creature of the month was a Jin, because I learned there's different classifications of Jin. They're in every single major religion. They might have a different name, but the components of that creature are the same. And now I'm looking through, they have personalities. We only know them for the most part. Think of a stereotype. We only know them as, you rub a magic lamp and poof. But there's so many layers of them. I think on my sheet, I put 15 different types of Jin on there because they just fit in so many different places. And it's really interesting how collaboration works together. Do you want me to give you another example about how much I love creatures real quick? Do you
Sure.
mind? Okay.
No, I don't.
Well, you said you were talking to, I believe, Erin Rednicki is going to be a part of our group. Well, I wanted to kind of possibly play off what she's doing. I don't know if it'll work. We'll see. We'll find out real quick, won't we? Is Bigfoot. So he's known as the Yeti, the abominable snowman, the skunk ape in Florida, all across the world, always in these sparse areas. Now you add in indigenous people. Indigenous people all around the world also have a different name for him. And they also have like what he does and how he can so-called scare people and such. But think of this way. What if I told you that Bigfoot is actually the protector of Mother Earth? That would change your perception of the way that you see this creature. That, okay, so he's far in the woods, he's trying to take care of his area, like that old man about get off my lawn, and he's mad about it. And all he wants is people to do the right thing, but they don't always do that. Well, we can turn that into story. That's a character, someone misunderstood. That some big, burly, scary guy that looks real tough and has a gruff voice, but he's soft and sensitive and beautiful on the inside. That's a character. That's a whole new way to look at how you're going to write for kids, is bringing out these different kinds of feelings, taking away the stereotype and really digging into who is this character. Yeah. So this is a lot of part of what I'm trying to do with Creature of the Month, to give writers a toolbox, something more in their toolbox that they can pull from, because that could change your theme. It could be a main character, be a side character, an obstacle. Does it even have to be a creature? It could be someone's personality, one of these creatures' personality, and now you input that into a person.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And it changes the whole complexity, the narrations and the themes of your story.
Yeah. That's a really cool perspective. So when you're, I don't know, when you're working with writers, specifically in this area of creatures, because it is one of your areas of expertise, of course, what kind of differences do you see if we're going to take, like some creatures, as you mentioned, we might know them very well, or we might think we know them very well. Of course, you're adding extra layers to them. But if I'm thinking about things like, well, you mentioned Bigfoot or dragons, or, these kinds of creatures that have already some kind of established folklore associated with them. But then there might be some writers who'd be like, I want to create something entirely new. Like we saw lots of examples of that through the Harry Potter series, like a new kind of creature that was maybe a mashup of some other kinds of creatures and this sort of thing. So what are some, what's the good, the bad, and the ugly? I keep using that phrase, but what are the pros and cons of using something that's more established, maybe more familiar to the reader, versus maybe creating something entirely new that you came up with from your imagination?
I'm going to throw you down a spiral right now, Sarah.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
All right. You mentioned dragons. Let's talk about a dragon for a second. You can look at medieval,
Yeah.
different kind of stories, right? And the dragon lives up in a lair. And it's said that he comes down the mountain and he kills people and he burns the village and he destroys crops and he's mean and aggressive. Everyone's got to kill him. But flip that around for a second.
Yeah.
What lived, because we didn't really say this, but creatures come from folklore and myth. We create these creatures because we don't understand something. So we're going to add in a reason for it. So let's put it this way. The dragon's up in the mountain, but who lived in the mountain in the Middle Ages? Kings lived up in the mountain. Royalty lived up in the mountain. They oversaw everything. Did they come down the mountain to get taxes? And if you didn't pay your taxes, what happens? They might destroy things and say, if you don't pay your taxes next time, we're going to make it worse for you. Just an overall societal construct of a governing embodiment. So you have this anger. So you could use a dragon, but then I'm going to throw a little twitch in something. How to Train Your Dragon. I know the movie's coming out. There's been a couple movies before. I'm not going to give away anything in case anyone hasn't seen it. But that dragon, cute little guy, he's not the fiery, I'm going to kill everyone. No, he's a cute little guy that this boy befriended because they both had a limb issue, right? They had a similar disability, let's say, and they befriended each other. Well, in that case, this dragon, as opposed to representing, the big angry guy up on the hill, he's representing, hey, just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean we have to continue to do it. So that creature, that dragon in that story is helping the main character. He's not, the dragon itself is not the main character. He's a side character, but he's helping the main character boy to get this information out, to change the kings and all of the people's mentality that this isn't the way it has to be. So yeah, you could throw a dragon in there, but you still have to look at what's both sides of it. So when you research, let's say, a dragon, you're going to look for, okay, what are the pros and the cons of that stereotypical dragon? Because there's three sides of a story: yours, mine, and the truth. So when you go through multiple layers of researching your creature, you're going to find that they represent something different in different societies, different time frames, based on what was that folklore of that time versus folklore of, the How to Train Your Dragon. It's newer age. So we have a difference of mentality. So let's say that, and then you asked about, okay, if you want to create your own. Well, let's say you have, I don't know, a lion head and a phoenix body. You're creating a creature. Well, now you're going to research twice as much because a lion, it's prideful, right? It's known as the king of the jungle, but they have a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Congregation, right? They live in a pack. I don't know if that's the correct word for it, but they live in a pack.
The pride.
A pride, thank you.
Yep.
Hence the pride thing. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So there's different aspects to just a lion where you could look up like Native American animal totems, and it's going to give a representation of what that lion means. You could look up a phoenix and think of, okay, well, they rise from their ashes, but something has to happen for them to want to release that and start over again. There's another way of showing a character, right? You have the cave in a lot of books, and you should, where you have to find yourself. Who are you? And then sometimes you have to release the bad stuff or things, or not necessarily bad, but it's what you don't need, so you can rise from the ashes. So when you're creating these different characters that do weird things, it's still about creating a full size, all encompassing, I'm not saying that right, sorry, encompassing. We'll just skip past that. Sorry, everyone. A full embodiment, how about that, of a character where you still have to figure out, every part of their personality. You still want to know, what is their intent in the world? What do they still want in the world? How are they going to be an obstacle, or what obstacle is going to go against them? Yeah. So either way, yes, a dragon could say, so something well known, but Do we want a stereotype in this day and age, kind of like the How to Train Your Dragon? Or do we want to, you know, or the old way, or do we want something new to shine and let kids, because the kids are reading this stuff and they need to see all these different personalities, and there's two sides of stuff
Hmm.
like the Bigfoot that we talked about is,
Yeah.
he's a big, burly, scary guy, but he's soft and cute and lovely on the inside. I mean, he smells a little, but it happens. People have some different kind of issues and such, but give them a chance.
Right.
If that
So,
makes
okay. So let's say we've got some writers who are watching this who are like, maybe we have some who are all gung ho. They love writing fantasy. They're like ready to go with, give me all the creatures. Okay. But let's say we've got some writers who are like, I've never thought to do this before, but this sounds really interesting. Rebecca's throwing out some very interesting ideas here, and I want to explore them further. What tips would you give for the writers who maybe have never given this some thought before? Like, how should they start if this is something that interests them?
Well, first of all, I think you should sign up for my newsletter.
Very good.
That's the first thing, because then you'll get a good grasp of how these different creatures can be in different places all at the same time. But honestly, it's research, research, research. I've got a lot of my books from off the bargain table, like at Barnes and Noble. It was
Hmm.
how to write fantasy because they have definitions of absolutely everything. Mythology,
Okay.
different kinds of books, different kinds of folklore. I have Celtic galore over here because I'm a Celtic buff. But so constant research. So first grab your books. That's important if you can. We have the internet, but I would say that when you look into the internet, look at who you're looking at. I mean, because you don't
Hmm.
want, just some schmuck to be telling you what's happening in the world, right? We got to have some a little bit of background. Um, or if let's say they don't, let's say it's like an obscure kind of creature. Look at multiple sites. See if there's similarities. Is there something that's different that pops out weird? And then you could go down a rabbit hole because those are always fun when we're researching. It totally stops us from writing, so why not? So just make sure. And then a lot of times the really good articles will have the references at the bottom.
Hmm.
Click on those if you can. Go to the library if you can get some of those kinds of books that will dive a little bit deeper into that particular creature. um, TV is just fine. I told you I watched Paranormal Caught on Camera. I love that show. Mysteries of the Unknown from like the History Channel or Strange Evidence even has some really interesting. I can't even tell you some of them. They've been gross, but they have some really interesting thoughts. Because as writers, we're already thinking in crazy places. So if we can find something that we can kind of hone into, and then when we go into crazy places or down this rabbit hole, that's when we can focus on that one particular thing. So what do we got? We got research, we got books, we got the internet, we got television, and I'm going to throw this out here: use your brain.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do. I know sometimes, but the point is that everything has another side to it. There's a yin to the yang. There's as above, so below. In darkness, only light is found. There's two sides of everything. And that when we pay attention to those different sides and look into like the hidden meanings of creatures for the most part, that they're powerful. They are symbols. They convey hidden meanings. They have societal constructs. And when you're in fantasy, that's the best place to do it because contemporary stuff it might not have as much of an impact, honestly,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people looking, it has their eyes on what kids are reading. I get that, but when you throw in the fantastical part of it and you still convey those same kind of messages, it takes on a whole different meaning for the overseers and for the kids, because then they can have fun with these different creatures and see a different side of them, because we're writers, and as writers I think if we can have a voice for people who don't have the voice or don't know that they need a voice, you're opening a whole new world up for kids that just want to just live in the world and be kind and beautiful. And I think as writers we can do that, but it does involves a lot of research and not looking at things at face value. You know,
Sure.
we've been told so many things like this, how it is, like the stereotypical dragon. But when you see the other side of something, all of a sudden a light pops up. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, what can we do with that? How fun.
Sure. Okay. So we've mentioned the Creatures Club. Um, how do people sign up for that, first of all? How do
Uh,
we find you?
well, you can go right to my website, radnotesbookcoaching.com.
Okay.
Pop up right there on the front. It's going to say, I have two pop ups because I have two newsletters that are separate from each other because not everybody wants to learn the writing tips, and some people just want to learn about the fun
Oh,
creatures.
sure. Yeah.
So the first two that pop up on my screen, one is going to be, and they can actually work together, is a villain worksheet. You'll get a free villain worksheet to understand how to see your character, your villain, from a different point of view, kind of like that dragon that we were
Yeah.
talking about. And that will go to my writing tips, and that comes out once a month around the 15th or so. And then the next one that pops up, the big old scary creature on there that looks like something from another world coming to take the kids away. So, which is perfect, you know, for Kidlet. So you can sign up right through there.
Okay.
That's his place.
Awesome. And is that the best place to find you? Are you on other places online too?
Sure, I'm on Substack, LinkedIn. What else we got? We got the Facebooks, we got the Instagrams,
Sure.
like we got the socials galore. I will say that I have been focusing more on the LinkedIn and the Substack than I have
Yeah.
the other medias and the just the scroll through kind of things
Yeah.
because I want a little bit more than just showing like a picture of who I am and something fun out there. I really want substance,
Yeah.
and I could do that more so through the Substack and
Yeah.
my LinkedIn. So
Yeah, very good. All right, so writers will have links to all of that so that you can easily find. And if if the creature stuff is your jam, you can't find a better place to go and hang out with Rebecca. I knew this would be a fun conversation, but I want to thank you again for your time and sharing your expertise with us all.
thank you, Sarah. I really had fun today. I hope
Yeah,
everyone else did as well.
I hope so too. And how could they not, right? So thank you, writers, for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.
All right. Bye.